We want to thank the Alberta government, the Canadian Red Cross, and the Government of Canada for helping us fund this project to increase awareness on mental health, especially in those communities that are underserved. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for joining us and joining this really important topic on mental health. Unfortunately, in our community and a lot of ethno-cultural communities, particularly here in Calgary and in Canada, we don't talk about mental health. There's a lot of shame associated with it, and I know we've heard that a million times before. So hopefully what we can do in this series is explore a number of really common mental health concerns that people have that really don't get discussed. Let's say somebody had a cold and they came out with a cough and you saw them and they're coughing and they're covering their mouth. Would you hold anything against that person because they had a cold? Is it a shame that, they caught a germ? Of course not. If that person went and got some medicine in order to help themselves, would you think any less of that person to do that? And that's really how we need to shift our thinking on mental health. Mental health needs to be thought of as a proper illness that at times can be small enough that we can cope and deal with it on our own. Like sometimes maybe you get a sore throat and you just drink some tea and you don't need to see a professional. But sometimes it's hard enough that we actually do need to go to the clinic, we do need to go see the doctor, and we do need to get professional help to let us cope. In the past 2 years, we've seen unprecedented levels of increased anxiety, frustration, anger, depression, marital conflict, and obviously this is due to the stressors that have been put in place by COVID. COVID turned over all of our lives. People that had steady jobs lost their jobs. Businesses that had a number of employees and were in the entertainment or food industry had to let go of their employees, had to shut down. People were unsure. Governments were unsure. Should we wear a mask? Should we not wear a mask? Do we get vaccinated? Do we not get vaccinated? All of this anxiety caused increased levels of stress. And due to those increased levels of stress, we saw that people in their homes were actually demonstrating the results of these toxic levels of stress. What can we do in our day-to-day lives to help us recognize when we have those symptoms? Because unlike the cold, where we all know what the cough looks like and the runny nose looks like, sometimes we don't know what it looks like to actually be sick in mental health and to have some type of mental health illness, or when we need help, or when we need to find help for a loved one, for a child, for a parent. So hopefully throughout these next couple episodes, we can discuss what are those symptoms that we should be looking out for, how it can impact our life, and what are the best ways to recover from those symptoms.
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah amma ba'd. My dear brothers and sisters, we're going to briefly talk about stress. So when you think about day-to-day life and the chores that you do, not everything is relaxation. Whether you're in school, whether you're going to work, whether you're dealing with your children or your family, there are things that can bring about stress in your life. And in Islam, we promote a balance of everything. So there's a time for relaxation and there's also time for work. Now, what would the Prophet ﷺ himself do for relaxation? When you look into his tradition, you find that he would spend time with his family and do outdoor activities. So it is reported that him and Aisha radiallahu anha, they used to race with one another. Likewise, Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, who was one of the caretakers of the Prophet ﷺ, he too narrates that the Prophet ﷺ would come and play with the small children of the town and the village, kicking a ball around and just having fun with them. So this shows us that part of the prophetic example is taking care of yourself and practicing self-care. For the Prophet ﷺ, it was spending time with his family and being outdoors. For yourself, it can be whatever makes you feel relaxed. For some people, it can be going out in nature. For others, it can be art, calligraphy. For others, it can be going to the gym. So find out what it is that helps you relax and helps decrease your stress levels. And that is what we encourage people to do. Now, practicing relaxation is only beneficial if you're actually doing something on the opposite end, meaning you're being productive and you're working hard. If you're always relaxing, then that's not going to work. And I find that's one of the challenges, particularly with young people, where we've created this culture of always wanting to relax. But relaxation will only work if you have been working hard. So spend time working hard and being motivated towards a particular goal, and then spend some time relaxing so you can decrease your stress levels. Part of decreasing your stress levels is going to be eating right, making sure you're getting enough physical activity, and making sure you're getting enough sleep. These three things will heavily contribute to the way that you manage and cope with your stress. And when your stress levels get out of sync and they become really difficult to deal with, that is when individuals will start to struggle with their mental health. It is one of the first things that we see, that when people are unable to cope with their stress levels, that they start to struggle with their mental health. And let us get back to what we were talking about, is that Islam promotes a balanced way of life. So there's a time to work and there's a time to have fun and to play, and that relaxation will actually help you be more productive. And that's what we want to see from our fellow brothers and sisters. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us tawfiq.
Let's talk about mental health and how it makes us sick. Let's begin to recognize when there is some kind of illness. So if somebody got sick and didn't come into work, you wouldn't blame that person. What would your expectation be of someone who was sick? That they would stay home, they would get rest, they would take some medication. So why not have the same expectation of yourself in terms of mental wellness? If your mental wellness is not there, why do you expect to just power through it? What's gonna end up happening is there's gonna be a crash. And how does that crash get expressed? What does that look like in real life? That might be you realizing that you have a very short temper and you're flipping out on people for no reason. Maybe your parents, maybe your spouse, maybe your boyfriend or girlfriend or your kids. Maybe it ends up turning into actual panic attack, where you find yourself like really not being able to control your feelings of anxiety and fear and sweaty palms. It actually turns into something where you can't sleep at night and it's always on your mind. Stress can manifest in many different ways. Some people, it can make them gain weight. Some people, it makes them lose weight. Some people, it just makes them overtired. Other people become panicky and start worrying about death and existential threats. Stress in and of itself is not a bad thing, right? Like stress is basically, if we were going to talk about the cavemen that wanted to go out at night and do some hunting, and they hear the roar of a lion and chemicals in the body start to produce this feeling of anxiety and stress. Well, guess what? This protected the cavemen from going out and getting killed, right? And that's why we were able to survive. A little bit of stress is not a bad thing. For us to grow and come out of our comfort zone, we need to experience a little bit of stress. However, prolonged exposure to stress, toxic stress, if we talk about infants, it retards their brain's development. Like this is how serious it is. Certain chemicals in the brain are produced when there's prolonged exposure to stress. So these chemicals get released, and these chemicals put you into this flight or fight mode. They put you into this state where your body is not operating at maximum capacity. That tires you out, that takes up your energy. How do we actually manage our stress? Imagine you got a bucket and your brain is a bucket, and raindrops and these drops are falling in your bucket. The raindrops, the water represents stress, and the bucket represents how much you're able to manage, how much stress you're able to manage before the bucket starts to overflow. So when the bucket overflows, that's when you're losing your temper. That's when you're having sleepless nights. That's when, stress is having a real negative impact on your life. So this bucket is filling up slowly with water. Now, these buckets are pre-built with a hole punched right into them. So our bodies naturally relieve stress, mostly when we sleep. But there's other activities we do throughout the day, when we eat, when we do exercise, when we watch a good movie, particularly when we release these endorphins, right? When we do these enjoyable activities, we're reducing these cortisol levels, right? These stress levels. Imagine the bucket is filling and filling and filling. But now, because of COVID and, your boss is giving you a rough time and you're having some relationship troubles and, due to COVID, you can't go and take your wife out for dinner. So now you can't improve those. And then because of COVID, people are getting sick and you got extra work to do, and that's making things at work worse. And all of these things are cycling and making each other worse. What ends up happening is your bucket is no longer being filled with raindrops, but instead it's like a hose on full blast, right? And the bucket is filling faster than it's emptying from the bottom. How do you empty the bucket faster? There's a number of ways to empty the bucket. And you know what? We're going to talk about the simplest ones first, the lowest hanging fruit, and then we'll move into more complex ways which you can empty out your bucket. First of all, you want to empty out that bucket, your body has to be able to have the right amount of energy to expel those bad feelings. What you put into your body matters. So at the end of the day, eating is a top priority. What you eat determines your mood and your behavior and your chemical composure in your body. So certain foods produce certain hormones. And if all you're eating is junk and sugar and spiking up your insulin and your energy levels and then having them dumped, it's not going to make it possible for your body to do this natural process of reducing stress, of letting water out of the bucket. The second thing, exercise. I know it sounds simple. And the truth of the matter is, most answers to really complicated problems, are simple. Think about it. When you go for a run, what's on your mind? Are you thinking about all the problems you had at work? Are you thinking about, where you're going to get your next paycheck? Most likely not. When you go out for a walk, or you go out for a run, or you go out to the gym, usually your mind is overwhelmed by these sensations that are around you. You get thirsty, you get tired, whatever it might be, at least your mind is not on those things that are increasing those stress levels. That's not even to mention that after a workout, your body automatically produces chemicals that make you feel good. I want you to imagine that your mind is a garden. All these beautiful flowers pop up in the garden. What are the flowers in the garden? Your kids, your partner, your job, the fact that we're living here in this country that's peaceful, we have opportunities. There's all these good things in your life. And if you can't see any good things in your life, send me a message. That's a different conversation. But for most of us, if we think about it, we can identify the good things in our life. Could be our hobbies, foods we like to eat, activities we like to do. If you can't identify any of these good things in your life, or if you're not thinking about them, if they're not top of mind, likely what's going on is your garden has been polluted with weeds. These intrusive thoughts. Why do we say intrusive? Intrusive means they come without permission. These intrusive thoughts come and plant themselves in our garden, and we give them attention, right? All the good things in our life, and we're focused on, for example, why does this guy get paid more than me at work? Why doesn't my wife make food the way that I want to make food, right? Or isn't, spending time with my kids the way I want her to spend time with my kids. You think about these weeds over and over and over again. And what happens as you think about them? You give them energy to grow. And the weeds end up taking over your garden. And you cannot any longer see anything good in your life. All you see is negative, negative, negative. It's our job to identify and catch ourselves thinking about these negative thoughts before they're planted. Once they're planted, you gotta be present in your garden and pull these weeds out. How do you pull these weeds out? I'll give you a very simple example. You have a presentation at work that you have to give. And, your manager told you, we want you to give this presentation to the rest of the team. And you start thinking to yourself, I'm not a good public speaker. I'm going to screw up. Other people are going to think that I'm stupid. These people, they're going to poke holes in my presentation. Well, let me ask you a question. When these are weeds, these are intrusive thoughts that start coming into our head. As they come, how can you counteract them? Would your manager have picked you if he didn't think that you could do the job? Would you be in that position at work if you weren't qualified? Pause for a second. Can you list for me right now in your head 2 or 3 examples of times where you were challenged with something and you overcame it and you were successful in doing it? Now, have other people been able to do this type of presentation before? So what makes you less capable than those people? So when you think about it logically, are those concerns that you have, are they the likely situation or are they unlikely? Finally, I just want to remind everyone, take the metaphor of the bucket. It's normal. Sometimes our buckets overflow. It happens to the best of us. You need to put yourself first. It is now time for you to put yourself first. And that means ensuring that you are spending your time focusing on eating right, focusing on doing exercise, focusing on proper sleep so that you can be a happier person, you can be a more efficient and effective person, and through there, you can help whoever else you want to help. You want to be a better father, you want to be a better spouse, you want to be a better husband. Start with taking care of yourself. Improve yourself, take care of your mental health, and God willing, you will be able to reach whatever goals you want. Thanks for spending the time with us. Stay tuned for more sessions, and I hope that you'll share this with other people from your community who might benefit from this message, particularly those who don't ever want to hear a message about mental health. Let's raise awareness on mental health. Once again, thank you, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.